Go ahead.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lookout. Today is 26th of August and we're covering a lot of lightning action in Northern California. There's quite a bit going on. As I was on last night with Steinberg, went outside and it was weird out there. It's humid and hot and still and breezy and everything. Just spooky weather for sure. And so lots of lightning, even some kind of cloud overhead here in Chico. Gotta turn off this scanner traffic here. Anyway, quite a bit going on, and so today is kind of the aftermath of that. And it's pretty moist out there in some places, but there's some crazy stuff going on. So we're gonna kind of bring you up to speed with where the action is kind of most happening. I'm a little distracted. There's some crazy stuff going on. On one of the fires I'm covering, they just had kind of a hairball experience. So we're going to talk about that. I got to turn off the radio here so I can kind of think because it's stimulating. Okay. Fire's exciting. Fire's kind of crazy sometimes. And that's why we're here. Get a piece of it. So let's just look at kind of the big picture here. All these little red dots across Northern California are all fires that have been reported in the last couple days. Some of them, a lot of them are out. But if you look at kind of the spread of them, there's fires all over the state from lightning. And so this constitutes a pretty decent lightning bust. And what we know is that fires in California, we talk on here a lot about how California's got the most robust fire suppression kind of systems in the world. Cal Fire is the biggest fire department in the world, and you have the Forest Service on top of that, and then you have all the local government. Everyone does some wildland fire in California, so enormous amount of resources. But when you get spread out like this and start getting a couple big fires across such a big geographic area, you no longer have the kind of saturated air power that has been what keeps fires from getting large when we've got a bunch of them. So, few fires are large right now, and it's kind of a difficult thing to message a fire, a bust like this, because we've got such a wide variety of fuel conditions, and some places get rain, and some places are in the middle of a big burn scar, and other places lightning hit in a place where there's been no fires for 50 years, and it's dry, and they didn't get rain, and so then you get the freaking complete nuke bomb explosion. So it's difficult to message that, hey, the Dillon fire just blew up and ran 1,200 acres in 2 hours. But if you live in Chester, you don't need to be worried about this little fire up the hill because it's burning in a burn scar and it got rained on. So what we're trying to help you guys understand a little bit is that not all fire is Nagasaki, Hiroshima devastation of the entire forest. It depends so much on location. So let's just jump in and kind of start with the main fires we want to talk about. We're going to turn off all this crazy clutter, and we want to talk about the Dillon fire up here that is named after my buddy Dylan Creasy. No, it's not true. He's named after the creek that is burning. And so Dillon fire's up here between Happy Camp and Hoopa on the Klamath River. That one really went big on during our broadcast last night. We got the Peak Fire that's burning kind of north of Weaverville. This is northwestern California. Got Dillon up here near T-Bar Road. Got the Peak Fire here, which is kind of just a little north and west of Trinity Lake, which also, so both those fires are big and complex enough that they both got assigned type 1 incident management teams today, or just complex incident management teams. We've got a cluster of fires over here in Deer Creek that we're going to talk about, the L2, L3, and L4. And we're going to talk about a couple little starts that are burning in burn scars on the Plumas and Lassen. And then we're going to talk about the Garnet Fire. And the Garnet Fire is the one we showed last night that just went absolutely bonkers day before yesterday with the crazy kind of mountain wave thunderstorm effects. Susan Hartley misses the other music. All right, well, we're going to mix it up here. You'll hear him again. We are doubling down on music. So let's start off here with Dillon. What we like to always kind of come back to is fire history, right? So here's Dillon Fire. We, if we turn on all of our fires in the Klamath Mountains from the last 100 years, we talk a lot about the puzzle pieces and how recent fires constrain the landscape opportunities for new fires. So here at Dillon's burning pretty much in an area here that burned in 2008. And then these areas in blue burned 2 years ago during the 2023 lightning bust on the 6 rivers in Klamath. So this fire is not, we don't expect this fire to really spread much in these 2 blue areas, but it will spread fairly readily through this 17-year-old burn. That said, the fire kind of made a big run, and then it's backing down the backside of this ridge. The kind of bad news here today with this fire is that the fire did spot today across the Klamath River. And sometimes that just doesn't happen. Oftentimes these fires you see will be stopped at the river. But what happened today was the fire punched up a big plume. And this afternoon the plume was kind of going way up here and bending over the river. And so the fire is established on the other side now. And the problem is that it's established below T-Bar Road. And T-Bar Road has got quite a few people that live on it, including Dillon, who's not named after the fire. So it's established down here below T-Bar. This is a bad spot because, as you see, it hasn't burned forever. And fires haul ass uphill in this country. So depending on where the fire comes up out of here, it's going to hit the community in T-Bar hard. And so we're going to cross our fingers and hold our breath because there's some of my best friends living there. We have burned a lot around properties here, and people are, have sawmills and they're actively managing their land, but it's sketchy. So kind of fingers crossed tonight for folks on T-Bar. I'm going to see real quick. I'm on a Facebook kind of chat group over there for it. And they're posting some interesting stuff here about the treatments. So these areas here, T-Bar Road comes across. It's across the river. There are treatments that have been done around this neighborhood. This is where it crossed the river. So this is the Creasy place that we'll come back to. My buddy Max Creasy's homestead. Spots are right below that. And then these are some views of it taken today, including this is taken from up off Highway 199, Wild Frontier camera on the Smith River in the afternoon, about just before 4 o'clock, and you can see why the fire would have spotted over. Just mega cumulus with kind of transport winds leading it off to the east. And this is some imagery of it today, kind of flanking downriver. Yesterday was pretty dramatic on this fire too. My buddy Jamie Allen sent me some pictures. Jamie lives over there, and he has some video here from yesterday. when the fire was kind of really doing its thing, that were shot by one of his friends. So, you know, we talk a lot on this channel about alignment, and alignment basically just means that this fire started here kind of mid-slope, and right off the bat, it had terrain above it to run up, and it had ample fuel. Now the same thing's happening on the other side of the river. Up here, you got the 2021 McCash fire, and so the fire's going to kind of be fairly hemmed in by that. The problem is that McCash, they went to great lengths to keep that fire from backing down into these neighborhoods. And so if you look at kind of the fire effects of the McCash fire, like this imagery is taken after the fire, you can see that a lot of the kind of cooler aspects in McCash survived the fire. And so oftentimes when we talk about, you know, resource benefits from fire, is that likely areas that burned in 2021 are going to survive this fire after this fire cranks up here T-Bar Road and into McCash. So it always kind of makes you wonder, like, hey, if we'd been able to let the fire back down through the neighborhood in 2021, would it be safer than it is now? It's all this stuff is really difficult to tease apart. But it's just the Klamath is an incredible kind of learning laboratory for understanding fire effects, fire severity, and consequent impacts on fire behavior. So Dylan's touch and go, got the personal kind of fingers crossed here. The people that live here, this is a beautiful homestead, mid-slope. Max Creasy, good friend, he went to Vietnam and came back and really didn't want to be around people at all. And he went to Humboldt for biology, and then he ended up being a wilderness ranger in the Marble Mountains up the top of the hill here, and packed mules, and he's made his whole life on this homestead. And I hope it makes it. I hope it makes it. Because they're good people. They've done a lot of good stuff. So it's tough watching this fire come up at them. There's only so much you can do. Keep your fingers crossed for T-Bar. Today is kind of a tough day there. Musical interlude. Oh man, stuff. It's just so much going on with them. There's just so much to all this, man. I got some Gonna show some pictures here. Oh man. All right, got it together. Where's my co-pilot? I need Steinberg. Need him to take over. All right. Well, if anything, if they lose it, they've had a good run. Living 50 years in the Klamath, in the middle of a slope, and it's a nice place. All right. We're going to talk about a fire now that isn't burning my friend's house down. This is a peak fire. Here we're kind of in the Trinity Alps. Here's Weaverville. Peak's kind of burning off Highway 3. This area is also not had fire forever. And when you get over the hill here, it had a fire that really kind of just skunked around for about $30 million. Some of these fires, you get a type 1 team on it, 4,000 acres, probably spent $40 million. It's like, man, we could have spent $10,000 an acre. Like, probably could have done a lot of prescribed burning and thinning and everything else for the amount of money we spend on some of these fires that are in the middle of nowhere to just like go out by themselves. Anyway, this fire, what happens in the Trinity Alps is a lot of these fires just kind of get rocked out. If you look around on the fire history, you see like, hey, there's no colors up on the top of the mountain, and that's because it's all rock, nothing to burn. And we talked on here before about kind of some of the crazy shit that happens trying to like keep wilderness fires in the wilderness, like flying crews into the top of some ridgeline here to put the fire out when it's going to go into rock anyway, and then like the helicopter crashed and 10 dudes died. So this fire's already kind of, if you look at the containment for this fire, it'll say 0%. But in reality, this fire is already 50% contained by the frickin' mountains. So basically they have to worry about this side. And what we've got here is kind of classic Northern California, in that you've got crazy fire suppressed thick ass forests that come right down into Sierra Pacific Industries clear cuts. And so we'll put a whole bunch of people out here. And there's contingency line in here from the deep fire 2 years ago. But, and there's some people living down in here, quite a few people. But we're going to expend an enormous amount of treasure and sweat to keep fire out of Red Emerson's tree farm here. I was just trying to think of a good metaphor for like tree farming in fire country. It's kind of like keeping your popsicles in the oven or something. But that's the peak fire. It's tough access. When the fire's really active on the mountain, there's not a lot you can do to kind of go direct on this thing. Like they're hitting it with retardant and kind of trying to keep it together until they can come up with a plan. But the plan usually is like pick it up when it gets out to a road, pick it up where you can, don't burn up Red Emerson's tree farm. So that's another one that's well established. It's going to get a team on it. It's going to burn for a long time. If we get extreme weather events while it's active, the fire has some ground to run in here, just in this kind of this extended area of unburned forest. So as we've talked about a lot before, is when you look at all the fire history, the areas that don't have fire history are the places that are the real pucker. And especially when you've got no fire history and a ton of people living out in the sticks. So a lot of people living out in the sticks with a big fire on the hill. It's going to be tough. There's just this history here of large fires that are in large part due to latrine, and a large part not extinguishable, right? So we got all these fires across the landscape. And we put almost all of them out. But the ones that just happen to happen, like a lot of these fires hit on kind of the upper part of the slope. But the ones that kind of hit halfway up the slope or lower on the slope, they have some ground to run. and become established. Fires that are just skunking around at the top of the hill, we usually often can get to them and get them out just because they're not really moving out on us. But the fires we're looking at today are the fires that moved out. We're not really talking about the 60, 80 fires that have been extinguished at 50 by 50 feet. Now we're going to pay attention to the ones that got away. So this is just California lightning bust, really typical. Lots of starts. We put out the ones we can get to. There's a few that become large because we just can't be everywhere. Not really a technical solution for lightning busts unless you can sway the fire gods with prayer, which a lot of people have tried. So that's peak. Just leaving on the fire history just to kind of communicate that, how much fire we've had on these landscapes, and that fire is the force that kind of sets the stage for what's going to happen. So here we got Redding. So we're going to come over now and we're going to look at the fires here in Deer Creek. So little geography lesson here. I'm going to turn off the structures because there aren't really any structures in Deer Creek. All right, so we got Chico down here where I'm living, my home. And Park Fire started right here last year and ran 400,000 acres kind of between us and Mount Lassen. 2021, the Dixie Fire burned 1 million acres out here. The North Complex / Bear Fire burned 150,000 acres over here in 2020. So all this blue on this landscape is burned in the last 5 years. And in between, you have these little pockets that haven't burned for a long time, or at least not for 15 years. So we have some new starts, and they're in Deer Creek. And so as far as geography of California goes, like, this is my geography. This is the land. I grew up here. I've lived here for 30 years in the bottom, so I've been up and down this highway like lots and lots and lots. Named to my company, Deer Creek Resources. So this is interesting. I mean, there's so much to talk about here, and so here we go. We've got the Dixie Fire. We've got the Park Fire. We got Highway 32, and Highway 32 was kind of a place that the Park Fire got stopped. And you got all this SPI ground out in here. We've talked about SPI, but it's there's some interesting geography of SPI. SPI is basically any place you see big clear cuts or a really pockmarked landscape, all the way from Oregon. Well, you could really start in southern Washington. SPI is big on the coast in Washington, but basically they've got all these clear cuts. This is their work. They're freaking efficient. They make a lot of shit happen. And so if you go from Mount Shasta down the kind of what we call the banana belt, the good timber ground of California, all the way down through Lassen, down through Antelope Creek, Mill Creek, Deer Creek, Chico Creek. Now we're down to Lake Orville. Keep going all the way down the Sierra, right? You got not as much in Yuba County, but then SPI, they've pockmarked the landscape down in Calaveras County. Like, this is all SPI. So very efficient at turning forests to younger forests. So here in this country, basically SPI's ground stops pretty much around Butte Meadows, and then we've got national forest up here. And the deal with all of the SPI ownership is basically they've consolidated all this ownership from people who came out here and kind of by hook and crook acquired and procured timberland in California before the Forest Service existed. So around Chico, timber barons from the upper Midwest, Michigan, Minnesota, they'd cut all the trees down out there by the late 1800s, and they needed to keep growing their dynasties, so they moved out west, and they got their friends and family and loggers and everyone to homestead a lot of ground out here, and then they would buy those homesteads. So basically, they scammed the big original settlers of timber out here, scammed their way into a ton of land, and then when the Forest Service came along in kind of 1910, all the good timber ground was taken because these people who came out knew how to cruise timber, and these big tall white dudes came out and walked around and made their maps and said, holy shit, these sugar pine are 8 feet in diameter. Let's buy this. Like, make sure you get Section 5. So, kind of as long as there's been kind of a government land office that was laying out the public land survey, all that good gravy ground. They call it the old man ground because the foresters can walk on, gentler slopes are easier to log, better soil. So SPI got all that good ground. So anyway, you get up in Deer Creek, and all the steep, nasty ground that's kind of hard to deal with belongs to the Forest Service. In Deer Creek watershed, here's some trivia. The average slope of Forest Service land is 36%, which is too steep to run a bulldozer on, really. And the average slope of SPI is like 15. So that tells you something. So this ground where this fire is burning right now, these little lightning fires. Another thing that's interesting about Deer Creek is there's this big roadless area here. Let's see if I got a roadless layer for you. And what you guys are watching right now is therapy through GIS. Just pretending that my buddy's house isn't burning down right now. Or maybe autopilot. Anyway, we got some layers here, don't we? Roadless mapping. KML. Here we go. Roadless areas. Okay, so another reason that these areas are roadless is, the same reason that these are roadless, or the same reason that SPI doesn't own it, is because they weren't great timber ground, they weren't easy to log, and so of all the roads that the Forest Service has built over the landscape in the last 100 years, like, this was not high on the list. So basically, from around the Red Bridge on Highway 32 up to Elam Campground, that whole side of Deer Creek is roadless, and then so is Butt Mountain. And so this area, this roadless area, all burned in 2008. During the, there was a lightning complex in 2008 also, just like we have right now, except that happened in June. And so these areas were kind of low priority, didn't have a lot of resources. And so this was the Cub Fire and this was the Onion Fire. And we've talked about this before, but it didn't kill all the trees. These fires kind of backed through, and there was heavy smoke, and they kind of did a kind of interesting kind of mosaic burn on this landscape in Deer Creek. And then nothing has happened since then. So if you drive up 32, kind of up above Potato Patch Campground, you'll see these like really steep, gnarly slopes with tons of snags on them. And so that's basically where these fires are burning. The L2 is burning kind of, Deer Creek Falls is right down at the bottom here. Here's Deer Creek Falls. If you drive Highway 32, you know where that is. Really cool spot. So straight across the way, super steep. L2 got going. So L2 today was the bigger of these three fires. You've got L2, L3, and L4. And these fires, originally one was called the Humboldt Fire. But I was watching them last night on the webcams. And they've had better access. None of these fires are right by roads. But they've kind of, L3 and L4 kind of knocked down. L2 got a little exciting today. It's this classic story that we've talked about on a lot of fires here. You've got a 17-year-old burn full of snags. You're on steep ground, no roads. And so putting fires out is really hard. You got to drop these trees that are on fire and throwing spots. And you've got, the only water you've got is stuff being dropped by helicopters. So what happened this afternoon, L2, they thought it was kind of going pretty good, and there was a heli-tap crew working on it, and then it spotted over their line, and then suddenly it was a kind of like about an hour and a half ago, the radio traffic was like, hey, we got to evacuate this heli-tap crew. The heli-tap crew was on the radio saying, we would like to be extracted from here because it's not safe for us anymore. And they said the nearest helicopter originally was like in Bieber. They could do that. And so they diverted a bunch of air tankers hour and a half ago to do drops on this fire to try to get the crew out safely, and they got the crew out safely. But this fire is definitely not done, because you can't stop a fire like this with aircraft. and they have very limited, they have to drive out to this road here, basically, in Rattlesnake Creek. And then, like, it's just really gnarly ground where this fire is burning. So this fire might actually do something. Like, because if you look in here at the kind of 17-year-old burn, it's overhead brush and 17-year-old snags everywhere. And just no, it's just not a good place to try. It's hard to even hike out here, let alone like pack a saw and gas and tools and everything else. So wouldn't be surprised if this fire actually becomes something. Also, because we've got T-bar on fire, we got a lot of fire going on, and so no one lives out here. Trees don't vote, and this is going to be a lower priority. They obviously don't want this fire to grow up to do anything. The biggest reason, like, they don't want to burn up Butte Meadows, they don't want to burn up Jonesville, but especially they don't want to burn up Red Emerson's tree farms out here, which are just a hop, skip, and jump over the hill. So fire history-wise, all you've got out here really is that 2008 fire. And then over here you got Park Fire, and over here you got Dixie. But in between, you've got really no fire history. You got a ton of people living in Butte Meadows. You got a ton of Uncle Red's tree farms. Over here you got Collins Pine Land and SPI mixed together. SPI is the places you see clear cuts, because Collins pretty much hasn't clear cut their land. So, like we would say, like, this fire is already contained, 80% contained by these fires, these other fires. Like, it's not going to burn up Chester. It's not going to get to Mineral. But it could threaten Jonesville and Butte Meadows. And so they're going to be working on it. But it's a tough spot. And it's just another one of those fires that is in the worst place, that started fairly low on the slope, that isn't going to be put out by aircraft, no matter how many aircraft you have. Someone sent me a picture, and I'll see if I can find it. Where was it? I think it was on Facebook. So bear with me while I Facebook on camera. Oh man, so many different places to look for stuff. Guess I'll start with myself. So I had a post last night about this fire, and then someone here sent me a picture. I have to find it. All right, L2 fire is about 5 acres and made it to the top of the hill. It's still inside the retardant operation, and they're going to drop mud on the L2 fire until pumpkin time. They're shuttling the crews out. Fire's going to be unstaffed until they can reassess with some hotshot crews, possibly. The L3 fires, crews are going to lay down and sleep nearby so they can start, and L4s inside the lines. Okay, so here's a photo that I wanted to show you guys. This is basically looking uphill from Deer Creek Falls, and this is kind of the ground that the L2 fire is burning in. It's like all these snags. I've never hiked over here just because it's like you can't even figure out how to get there. The bottom here is basically this rock cliff that drops off into a huge waterfall. But that's kind of the reality of like what the firefighting has to deal with is, steep, crazy slopes with big snags and heavy brush. This is the creek at the bottom. Yeah, someone's saying hunters call this area Rattlesnake, and this watershed here is Rattlesnake Creek. One of the kind of big picture interesting things in this area is that this area got cable logged by the Forest Service in the 1980s, and then some of that burned in 2008, but other parts of it didn't. And they logged a lot of huge old growth out of here in the 80s, and cable logging often is really kind of brutal in that you cut the trees down, you cut off the branches, and on old growth, like the branches might be, as big around as me. And then those branches last forever. They're super thick, they're super dense, they're full of sap. And so there's a lot of slash out here in this landscape that's 40 years plus of kiln-dried summer heat with new thickets of trees growing up through the slash. So this area here, like they've been really like Calf Creek and Rattlesnake Creek. They've been pretty lucky that they haven't had a fire start off Highway 32 that's really gotten away. There was a fire here off 32 in 2007 that kind of had potential, and it didn't do anything really. So it's Deer Creek, it's going to keep burning. It's this fire burning this landscape now would not be the end of the world. A lot of the trees that have survived previous fires here are going to survive the next fire. So see what happens. But Deer Creek is a place that we're not going to keep fire out of, and we're not going to put fire in there on purpose because it's not politically feasible. One of the problems with trying to do burning in Deer Creek is it all goes up the canyon here into Chester, and smokes everyone out there. And Chester's a big basin, and so it's just a hard place to operate. Like I said, this fire is not going to get to Chester in part because after the Dixie fire, all this ground around Chester has been salvage logged. And so there's like zero fuel. I was just up there. Like they cut all the trees down, they hauled them away. Then they use helicopters to spray herbicides to kill all the brush so they can plant little baby trees. And so like you can see it on the map here. Like you've got thousands of acres around Chester that like absolutely is not going to burn with a blowtorch. You can go out there with a freaking flamethrower in the middle of the summer, and you could have Burning Man out here and have like 60,000 people running around on drugs with fire, and it would be safe. It wouldn't go anywhere. So, and they wouldn't get stuck in the mud. So, maybe that's like the next thing for Chester's economy is they can have like Burning Man. It's just like a big lake bed practically as far as fire hazard goes. Anyway, I'm not serious about that. They can have Burning Man somewhere else. All right, so that's our L2, 3, and 4 update. They're talking about pumpkin time. Pumpkin time is when Cinderella, like when the pumpkin shows up and turns into a carriage or something. Like it means it's too dark to fly a helicopter or airplane. So that's what you call legal dusk when you're a helicopter aviation person. There's another fire showing up here out in the Plumas. We talked yesterday about letting fires burn in the middle of fire scars. You got the Wheeler fire out here that's like surrounded by rock and like some trees that survived Dixie and absolutely zero fuel. And so this is when I'm talking on Facebook about, hey, let these fires burn in the middle of nowhere. Like if we zoom out on this burn, like where's it going to go? Like this thing could creep across the landscape for the rest of the year and not damage anything and actually help clean up the burn. And so, like I said on the Facebook, if you think that might be a good idea to let some fires burn out in the middle of like, I was going to pull up some Dixie Fire imagery here to make this a little more easy to understand. All right, so it's loading up a bunch of tiles of fire severity mapping from Dixie, where red is like areas that have like nothing on them at all, and then green are areas that have some. This area here is right on the edge of a fire that burned before Dixie, like 2019, the Wheeler fire. But this pink area is also denuded. So like when I'm saying like, I'm not saying like let the fire burn down my buddy's house in T-Bar in an area that hasn't burned for 100 years, but I'm saying like, hey, if we have some lightning strikes out here in the freaking Caribou Wilderness, inside a patch of complete moonscape where no one lives, like let's not fly repellers in there and chop down a snag that is literally the only thing happening. A lot of times these fires that are burning out in somewhere like this in a snag, so there's no fire on the ground because there's nothing on the ground to burn. It's burning in a tree, and then you cut down the tree and you have fire on the ground and you have to put it out. But this is what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, we got literally like tens of thousands of acres out here that are burnt to a crisp, and they're standing trees, and like you have a lightning strike catches on fire. Like, hey, maybe we shouldn't fly people out there and put it out. Maybe those people could go like do some thinning or burning or something that benefits society. So I want us to, it turns out talking about the stuff on Facebook is like impossible because the same people that always argue about things refuse to like, they're just like, well, it didn't work out so good in Dragon Bravo to manage a wildfire. And I'm like, well, okay, the Dragon Bravo fire happened to be surrounded with 250,000 acres of continuous overdense forest. And yeah, it ran 150,000 acres versus letting a fire burn out here that's actually surrounded by 100,000 acres of no forest at all. Like, don't give me that argument that, oh, it didn't work out so good in Arizona. We probably shouldn't ever think about letting a fire burn anywhere on the landscape. You're crazy, man, to even think that. Put out those fires. It's like, let's just talk about like places in general. Like, yeah, you can have a completely different policy like over here in Westwood than you do in Chester. Like, we have maps. Like, it's not too hard to figure this stuff out. So, but that's what I want to talk about on this channel. It's like, okay, if someone brings up an idea about where stuff like this should happen, shouldn't happen, bust out the map and say like, oh, do you mean right here in the middle of Spurnscar, or do you mean over here by Quincy where it hasn't burned? Yeah, we probably don't want to do it around Quincy, but yeah, Crescent Mills, yeah, maybe it might be a good idea. Let that fire burn. So anyway, this is what maps are good for, is like they root a conversation in reality, right? And so we can argue about philosophy and where the Forest Service really effed up all day long, but like when it comes down to it, like all these things have like a mapping component, and all these tools that the government has spent billions of dollars on mapping, fuels, topography, satellites to go look at the density of the forest. Like, well, let's use this stuff and make like real informed, subtle decisions. And of course, people are using maps to make the bad decisions too, but don't let the fact that really bad things happen somewhere like paralyze us from like the other option is just to put out every fire for the rest of my life, and then like the next fire is going to like burn up all this green out here that will be over dense and thick, and then we won't have any forest at all. You know, like right now it's like you could have a lightning fire out here in this green that actually does good work keeping this green area green, or you can put the fire out there and then wait like 30 years for another like 10-year drought to happen, and then have another big fire, and then just like we'll just have one big brush patch instead of like a nice green forest surrounded by brush. So, soapbox, lightning, bust, blah, blah, blah. Someone says a pumpkin's a collapsible portable water source. Yes. And when I say pumpkin time, they're not talking about those pumpkins. They're talking about the clock. All right, so, blah, blah, blah. Picket fire is pretty much done as far as we can tell. This is over here in Sonoma County. You wouldn't hear me probably saying like to let that fire burn, because Lake County is probably not the place that we're gonna like implement my my fantasy. Okay, so now we got another story that is emerging, and also lots of facets to it. We got the Garnet Fire down here, so we're out east of Fresno. Here's Fresno, Sierra National Forest, and this area also has a pretty rich fire history. Let's just kind of look up in the mountains here. Turn on our fires. As we said in Klamath, everywhere else, the places you need to worry about are the places that don't have any color on the fire history map. Because the places that have color, at least they've had fire, and they're like oftentimes like not as thick and overstocked. Like, yeah, it might be ugly and in many places pretty effed up, missing the kind of whole shady forest thing that we love. But at least there's still hope for like doing something in these areas that haven't burned yet. And if we weren't spending all of our money putting out every little lightning fire, like maybe we could actually get some stuff done. So anyway, Garnet Fire blew up, and you can see kind of this heat satellite. It blew up and it back down. It blew up in the Kings River, and it went over the mountain, and then I think early this morning or something, it crossed the North Fork of the Kings River. And so this area that's burning in is burned in the Bulge Fire in '89, and it burned in 1916, and it burned in the Rough Fire in 2015, and it even burned last year in the Basin Fire. So this fire is actually spread significantly in a one-year-old burn just because it's full of like grass. But the problem and the interesting part of this story is this green box up here is called the Tea Kettle Experimental Forest. And I had a chance to kind of look at a project. Yeah, I forgot to use my puppet. I probably should have just gone to my puppet when I couldn't talk at the beginning of the program. All right, so Tea Kettle. Tea Kettle, I just learned today, is the largest intact old growth forest in the Sierra Nevada that doesn't exist inside of a national park. It exists on the Sierra National Forest. And there's a guy named Malcolm North who is kind of a guru of forest and fire ecology, old Forest Service guy, researcher, and he's been stomping around out here. There's been a huge amount of research done on kind of historic forests, their structure in California, and everything about how old forests should look based on kind of taking the mapping of like the density and size and distribution of mature trees out here, because this area hasn't really been logged heavily and it hasn't been destroyed by fire. So Malcolm decided, hey, we really should burn this. We should really burn this pretty good sized chunk here. Like, I'm not sure how big it is, but 3,000 acres. So Malcolm got the ball rolling, and he connected a nonprofit group with $6 million to burn it, make it happen. And so, and we thought about bidding on it, the company I was working for, and we didn't, just because it was kind of too complicated. Like, so what's going on here in Tea Kettle is like this is really emblematic of what's happening all over the Forest Service as far as kind of planning paralysis, where they wanted to burn this for a long time, and they started the process of NEPA surveys, so surveying for arc sites, surveying for rare plants, surveying for lizards and spotted owls and carnivores and badgers and everything, right? All this stuff that you have to do before you can like pick a blade of grass on the national forest. So Tea Kettle, they're kind of still in the process of trying to figure out how they're going to burn this. One of the problems is that like there's not much burning of 3,000 acres going on just about anywhere. There's some people doing it barely, and the Forest Service, they're not good at getting big burns done. But they're especially not good at getting planning done. And another problem is here that you got to drive out. Like the top of this is like 8,000 feet, and so there's like really bad road to get all the way out there, and so there's snow, so you can only do your like wildlife arc, all this other surveys like a couple months out of the year, waiting for the snow to melt at 8,000 feet. So anyway, it's been planning for a long time, and now we got this fire down here, the Garnet Fire, and the Garnet Fire is just gonna like pretty much likely gonna just hose this hole. It's gonna come from the bottom of the hill up Canyon Way, and it's gonna smoke the Tea Kettle, right? Very likely. And the sad thing is that even if this fire gets put out now, before it gets up in there, like, there's no guarantee that this project's going to get done. It could be a fire anytime in the next 5 years, could take this project out. So there's just projects all over the country, all over the West, where there's a huge amount of work that's been done by planning, and then a fire comes and burns it all up to a crisp before you get your project done. So very likely that's going to happen on Garnet. Garnet's, well established in steep, nasty country. It's not going to really be stopped by air tankers. You're not going to put crews, uphill of it, and so very likely we're going to see. This is like Max Creasy's house, but I'm not going to cry about this because it's just a forest and it's not my buddy's apple orchard. Anyway, I am going to cry about how much time and energy has been wasted trying to do the right thing. And I'm just glad that we didn't bid on this project, because I'm glad I haven't spent like the last 3 years of my life like trying to shepherd a bunch of ologists through like everything it would take to get this project done, and then to see it get smoked by wildfire. Anyway, that's my my embittered 25 years in planning, watching everything burn up monologue. We'll see what happens with this fire, but today it was kicking ass. Tea kettle's gonna boil. Okay, people. Well, I guess we could go snoop around on some stuff, or we could just go sit in a hammock. I think I'll go sit in a hammock. Garnet looks like it was human caused, someone said. Wouldn't know. Anything new on here? What's happening on Lightning Complex? All right. I'm going to play my new song again and get out of here. I like this song. I'm glad we got it.
Yeah, firm. So it'll be good.